The phone call that Jerome Luai received at 2 in the morning wasn't from a teammate or a family member checking in. It was from federal police officers informing him that his name had come up in a massive investigation into sports bribery and corruption, and the evidence they'd been gathering for months allegedly shows the Wests Tigers halfback involved in arrangements so dodgy that his entire career is now hanging by a thread, and the NRL is facing one of the biggest integrity crises in its history. Before we dive into this absolutely explosive story that could shake rugby league to its core, quick favour. If you're loving the content on Unpopular Aussie Opinions, smash that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers watch without subscribing. It costs nothing, but means the world to us. Did you hit it? Legend. Thanks so much. Now back to the main event. Jerome Luai is allegedly caught up in a $2 million bribery sting that has federal authorities, the NRL Integrity Unit, and the Wests Tigers organisation all scrambling to understand the full extent of what's been uncovered, and the leaked documents that are starting to emerge paint a picture of financial arrangements and suspicious payments that go way beyond what anyone expected. Picture this. One of the game's most talented playmakers, a bloke who was instrumental in Penrith's premiership dynasty before making the big money move to the Tigers, allegedly involved in financial dealings with offshore betting syndicates and intermediaries who've been under surveillance by authorities for months. We're talking about bank records showing unexplained deposits, text messages discussing arrangements that look incredibly suspicious, and a paper trail that investigators believe connects Luai to a broader network of corruption that extends well beyond just one player. Stick around, because what we're about to reveal isn't just about Jerome Luai's potential downfall, it's about systemic problems in rugby league that allow this kind of corruption to flourish, and trust me, the implications of this investigation are going to reverberate through the sport for years to come. Now, to understand the severity of what Jerome Luai is allegedly facing, you need to understand what bribery in professional sport actually means and why authorities take it so seriously. We are not talking about simple salary cap violations or contract disputes. Bribery allegations in this context typically involve players receiving payments or benefits in exchange for influencing match outcomes, providing inside information to betting syndicates, or participating in schemes designed to manipulate sporting results for financial gain. It's match-fixing territory, the kind of corruption that strikes at the very heart of sporting integrity and destroys public confidence in the legitimacy of competitions. If the allegations against Luai involve any element of match manipulation or providing information that could be used for betting purposes, we are looking at potential criminal charges, lifetime bans from rugby league, and reputational damage that could never be repaired. The $2 million figure that's been referenced in connection with this investigation is staggering and suggests this isn't some small-time operation or minor indiscretion. According to sources familiar with the investigation, that amount represents the total value of financial flows that investigators have identified as suspicious, involving multiple parties, numerous transactions, and a complex web of payments that were allegedly designed to disguise their true purpose. The money trail reportedly includes transfers to offshore accounts, payments routed through third parties and intermediaries, and cash deposits that were structured to avoid triggering automatic reporting requirements that banks use to detect money laundering and other financial crimes. The sophistication of the alleged scheme suggests this wasn't a player acting alone, but rather someone who was receiving guidance and support from people experienced in moving money without detection. The investigation that led to Luai being implicated allegedly began months ago, long before any public whispers of problems emerged. According to leaked information, federal authorities were conducting surveillance on individuals suspected of involvement in sports betting corruption when Luai's name started appearing in communications and financial records. The investigators weren't initially looking at rugby league specifically, they were tracking a broader network of people involved in sports manipulation across multiple codes, but as they dug deeper, patterns emerged that suggested several NRL players might be involved in arrangements with these individuals. Luai's name allegedly came up multiple times in wiretap conversations, in text message exchanges that were obtained through legal warrants, and in banking records that showed financial connections between the player and individuals already under investigation. The timing of when these alleged activities occurred is particularly significant because it could have implications for match results and competition integrity going back potentially years. If Luai was involved in any arrangements while he was at Penrith during their dominant run of premierships, it raises questions about whether any of those victories were tainted by corruption. If the arrangements began after his move to the Wests Tigers, it potentially explains some of the team's inconsistent performances and unexpected results. Either way, the integrity of matches that Luai participated in is now under scrutiny, and the NRL is going to have to conduct its own investigation to determine whether any games need to be reviewed or results potentially overturned, which would be an unprecedented situation in modern rugby league. The reaction from the rugby league community has been one of absolute shock and disbelief. Jerome Luai has been a high-profile player throughout his career, someone who's been in the spotlight constantly, and the idea that he could have been involved in corruption while under such intense public scrutiny seems almost impossible to comprehend. Social media erupted when the first reports of the investigation emerged, with fans desperately hoping that the allegations would turn out to be unfounded or based on misunderstandings. Luai's former teammates at Penrith have been conspicuously silent, with none of the Panthers players who won premierships alongside him willing to publicly defend him or comment on the allegations. That silence speaks volumes and suggests that people close to Luai might have concerns about what the investigation will ultimately reveal. The West's Tigers organisation is in an absolutely nightmarish position as this scandal unfolds. They recruited Luai with massive fanfare, positioning him as the playmaker who would lead them back to finals contention after years of struggling at the bottom of the ladder. The club invested significant salary cap space in securing his services, built marketing campaigns around his arrival, and structured their entire game plan around his abilities. Now they're facing the possibility that their marquee signing is about to be banned from rugby league permanently, that matches is played for them might have been compromised, and that the club's reputation has been damaged by association with alleged corruption. Tigers officials are reportedly cooperating fully with investigators while also conducting their own internal review to determine if they missed any warning signs or if anyone within the organisation had knowledge of problematic activities. The legal implications for Luai if the bribery allegations are proven are severe and extend well beyond just rugby league sanctions. Match fixing and sports corruption can involve criminal charges under various laws related to fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. If prosecutors believe they have sufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges, Luai could be facing potential jail time in addition to being banned from rugby league for life. The $2 million figure suggests the scale of alleged corrupt activity is substantial enough that authorities would definitely consider pursuing criminal prosecution rather than leaving it to sporting tribunals alone. Luai has reportedly retained a high-profile criminal defense lawyer, which indicates he understands the seriousness of the situation and is preparing for potential criminal proceedings. The NRL's Integrity Unit has been working alongside federal investigators throughout this process, and the league is now facing difficult decisions about how to handle the situation publicly while the investigation is still ongoing. The Integrity Unit's typical approach is to wait until investigations are complete before taking action against players, but the seriousness of the allegations against Luai might require the league to act more quickly to protect the competition's reputation. There are already calls from some quarters for Luai to be stood down immediately pending the outcome of investigations, following the precedent set in other high-profile integrity cases. However, standing down a player before charges are laid raises legal issues around presumption of innocence and could expose the NRL to potential lawsuits if Luai is ultimately cleared. What makes this scandal particularly damaging for rugby league is that it comes at a time when the sport has been working hard to rebuild public trust after various integrity issues in recent years. The NRL has invested heavily in integrity programs, education for players about gambling dangers, and monitoring systems designed to detect suspicious betting patterns. The fact that an alleged $2 million bribery scheme could have operated without being detected by these systems raises serious questions about their effectiveness and whether the league is actually capable of protecting the integrity of its competition. Critics are already pointing to this case as evidence that rugby league's integrity measures are inadequate and that more needs to be done to prevent corruption. So here we are, watching one of rugby league's most talented players allegedly caught up in a $2 million bribery sting that threatens to become the biggest corruption scandal the sport has faced in modern times. The investigation is ongoing, the evidence is still being compiled, but the damage to Jerome Luai's reputation has already been done, and the questions being raised about rugby league's integrity systems aren't going away anytime soon.